much. We go to theater.
All right, we're gonna
Yes, we have all of the things we can get very smart.
we're gonna start without Chris, and she'll come up and join us soon. All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. It's 7:31. Barry's not here. So Gene, I get you seated for Barry tonight, then, unless he shows up for some reason. You know. All right, first time on the agenda, Stuart Green, Terry Eblin, 1944 Litchfield Turnpike, application for replacement of septic system. Anybody here on that matter tonight? You want to just come on up and just briefly describe what's going on? Not a big deal. I mean,
So, we live at 1944 Litchfield Turnpike. We've been there since 1993. The house was built in the 40s, late 50, and we've never had to deal with septic ever. So we found that we were starting to get water coming up off the cover. And so we had a couple of contractors and have worked with Bill Merrick, who's here with his brother Bob, to come up with a proposal that we prefer versus any other proposal. So that's, I don't know if that's
what's
clear
shown
enough.
on the plan here.
Yes, that's on the plan there.
Terry, are you familiar with the situation? You're not? Okay. Now, has QVHD approved that plan already, or?
Yes, yes. John Ladano was out with the Merricks and did okay the proposal based on his measurements, their measurements, and that's, you can see his approval over there on the right side of the.
Oh, yeah, I see it. Okay, yeah, signed off on there.
Yeah.
So how, was it like 35 feet or so from the wetlands? Is that what this is showing us, or?
Yes.
Yes, I'm gonna move,
Yeah, okay.
35 feet.
Okay.
it's my husband and I alone in the house, one bedroom.
Mhm.
It's a little piece of property. It was the McKernan's property, if people remember Sarah McKernan. It was her property, her and her sons.
And you want to just come on, Mr. Merrick, you want to just come on up and just sign in also, just so that we can have you, ask you a couple questions, or one of you, I don't care which one.
You gonna sign it?
Oh, I'll sign it and then I'll let you.
So basically, is it your view that there's no place else on the property that this could go, or?
Yes, there is, but you'd be too close to the well. You have to go for a well exception, and
okay.
so you're better off being closer to wetlands than close to your well.
Yeah, well, and what's the nature of the wetlands? Is it flowing standing water, flowing water,
It's
just
a
skunk cabbage?
basic standing water, skunk cabbage. So
Not very high at all, more muddy than anything, depending on the weather, which we've had lots of rain.
Well, yeah.
It's just like a low spot there.
Yeah.
The water collects, yeah.
Yeah.
The larger wetland system is more towards the back of the property that's behind you
Yes.
and whatnot. This is more like a small pocket that feeds down toward it.
Okay. All right. Something we should delegate, you think, just so it gets done
It
quicker?
needs to get done, and that was why I had them come
Yeah.
sooner rather than later, so that.
Right now, it's creating a nuisance. So
Yeah, we don't need the septic overflow to go into the whatever wetlands are
No.
there either, so it's something you're comfortable dealing with? I don't want to monopolize this. Anybody else have any other questions, or? Okay,
Just,
oh, go ahead.
what is this septic system here? This is one of the new,
it's a mantis system, they call it.
and that, can you describe that just a little bit, or a little?
In areas, they have these new style septic systems that give you more square footage per linear foot of leaching area. So in smaller areas where you can't get the 75-foot runs and stuff, they shrink them down so you still have the same ELA, which is your leaching area, versus spreading it out into a bigger area.
So you're gonna dig out part of this area to fill it with sand or?
Yes,
And where is that?
in the
That can
front
be removed?
side of the house. The Route 69 side, right corner of the house.
Yeah, well, it's more the left corner.
If you're facing the house.
Right,
Well, if you're facing the
Yeah.
house, right,
Right.
you're looking out the toilet.
yeah,
And that's what,
Right.
just gonna be spread out, or,
it's like here. if you're
It's
looking
right
at a
there.
house.
It's, yeah, it's 35-foot trench.
All it is like a fin.
no, the material that you take out to put the sand.
We
in.
have to bank up the select fill that we bring in with the material we take out of the hole, so what you have to do is you will dig the hole out, we'll use it as a barrier to bank up so the sand don't take off down the hill.
So the finished product will be a hump,
Exactly.
a
It'll be-
hill,
It's
a
gonna
berm?
change
type
the-
of-
It'll be
Yes,
higher, and then it'll be 2-to-1 slope back down.
right. It's gonna change that geography on that part of the yard for sure.
Approximately 2 feet higher.
And that'll be seeded and,
Seeded, hayed.
Yeah.
Just so you understand our process, when applications like this are filed, if we act on it, we have to wait till next month to do something. If we have a process where we could delegate it to Terry as an enforcement officer, then he can approve something in the interim, so
Well, I appreciate
that seems to be the way we should be handling this
Yeah.
one, I think, right?
before it goes out of control.
Yeah, so I don't know, yeah,
Question.
go ahead.
The system that you're replacing, obviously, where was that?
About 8 feet off to the left of it if you're facing the house. So, closer to wetlands than the proposed
No
system,
one-
That's how I would have started.
so.
I don't know anything about who put the system in, to be honest with
Oh, yeah,
It was done back in the 50s.
yeah, wasn't any regulation at that point.
you. No,
All right, do we have a motion to delegate this to Terry?
I'll make the motion.
Jack moved. Do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second.
David second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? All right, all in favor, so you're all set.
Thank
Terry
you.
will handle the thing. You could work with him as far as working out any details and, you know,
okay,
okay?
appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome. Okay, another popular topic this evening, 6 Robin Road application replacement of septic system. Anybody here on that one?
Jay Damon?
Hi. Yeah, if you would, please. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's been wet.
You have the best proper skunk headers you've ever met.
Okay, so what I'm presenting to do is to install and repair for 6 Robin Road, which the system has failed. We cannot meet the separation distance to the wetlands in the location of the septic tank and also the well separation distance. So what we're proposing is a non-compliant repair with the state health code because we cannot meet the length that is dictated by the codes. So the actual repair would be 60 feet from the wetlands. If you have the diagram, you'll see the outlined area of the wetlands. So the actual leaching product, which is, again, a mantis system. This is a different type. This is a double wide mantis, so it gives us a lot more square footage per linear foot installed in select fill, which is sand. And the down gradient sand, which cleans and purifies the effluent should it go downhill, will be 25 feet down gradient from the actual component of the leaching field. The if you see, there's a line with, I have marked edge of lawn. After that, with all these rains that we've had, it's little pockets of water and stuff like that. The true wetlands is 40 feet away from that. So what I'm looking at doing is just clearing out the overbrush just beyond the edge of the grassed lawn and installing this down gradient filter bed, which is select fill, and creating the leaching field that I proposed. This is probably the best effort that we can come up with for this property. Again, as the Merrick had said, we don't want to encroach upon the well as being potable water. We don't want to contaminate that. So I guess the next best effort is encroaching on the wetlands. This plan is approved by John Ladano from Quinnipiac, and he's 100% behind it. We did soil tests out there when the people bought the house, and the system was not failing at the time, even though it was condemned by the septic inspection. And when I called John about this the other day, he goes, okay, I can see. But it had not surfaced, but now it's starting to surface.
Yeah.
And they're not, quote, in violation of any state health code right now, but when you walk on the grass, even though we've had rain every other day, it's soggy. And so it's time to make the repair.
Is the 1250 gallon tank the existing tank, and
That
there's
was
a new one?
repaired, that was installed a couple years after the people bought the house. I believe in 2000, it was like 10 years ago. Let's just say 2010, just for argument's sake. I don't have that information with me, but it's a brand newer model 1,250 gallon septic tank, and they also installed a distribution box at that time. So, and they tied it into a leaching field, and these people have gotten by with it for the years since till today.
So are the tanks gonna remain in place? You're just
Yes,
redoing the leaching
Right,
field?
we just have to install a pump chamber, because the pump chamber has to go down gradient from the septic tank. And unfortunately, the leaching field, if you look at the cross-section on the second page, it shows that the actual leaching field is 10 inches, the bottom of the new leaching field is 10 inches above the existing grade. That's to give us a separation distance from the modeling or redox mortification of the soils in that area.
So it'll be another berm, basically, similar to
Well,
previous?
the gradient is pretty good, because where the back of the
Oh,
house
yeah, it
comes
goes down to begin with.
and it's I think a 9% slope. And so that, yeah, it is a 9% slope. So that gives us a heck of a margin to make the surface water carry out, and then eventually, yes, into the wetlands. Of course, we're gonna have to have a silt fence barrier and stuff that Terry would be on top of us with.
Yes. Okay. Anybody have any other questions on this one? I think it's the same disposition.
Do we need copies of the Quinnipiac approval?
I'm sure Terry will.
I have a verbal approval from John Ladano. We have not gotten as far as submitting an application to repair prior to this meeting.
Okay.
But after this, well, I can do that.
Yeah, well, I'm sure Terry will have that on his list.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
I just have a general question about the berm.
Sure.
It looks like it goes up before it goes down, so that means there's sort of a valley to the left on my picture. Won't water collect there?
Actually, you're not seeing, I did not draw in the finished grading,
Oh,
because that grading will follow the contour
oh,
up
that's
to
the
the
answer.
house.
Okay.
So if the leaching field is up here
Yeah,
and
well,
the existing grade is down here,
I understand.
we're gonna do that
that's fine.
and make everything pitch away from the
No, but I
house.
mean, exactly.
I don't wanna flood out a expensive leaching field with groundwater.
I agree.
I've been doing this for over 40 years, and,
That's why I asked,
yeah,
'cause I couldn't
and-
see.
and I try to do my best every time, so.
Anybody else have any questions? All right. Do we have a motion to delegate this one to Terry also?
Lucky guy.
So moved.
Oh, Dave moved, second.
second it.
Jack seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions. Okay.
Thank you all.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you. You too.
Thank Chris.
Okay, moving right along. Next item on the agenda, 77 Orchard Road, application for construction of sunroom and deck. Anyone here on that one? Yeah, if you want to just come on up and just sign in for Chris's benefit. Okay, if you want to just briefly describe what you're looking to do.
Just because I just bought the house on December, and I saw the file that they already have approved for the deck. The deck that is been is bigger than its existing deck, and I think they got approved and they just do only that size, like smaller than they got approved. So my contractor, like, if I want to do like the addition to the same approval, it might be a good idea, and do some like the glass, like put some wall, something like that.
Okay. All right, so was there a prior approval on this one, Chris, or was there a
I don't believe so.
okay.
That wasn't mentioned when the application came in, so I honestly did not
Oh,
check.
okay, all right.
Want me to run downstairs and see if I can find a file?
They,
if you don't-
my contractor found that in Hampden, the approval paper in Hampden, then in the,
Well, I'm just gonna go see if we've got anything.
So there's a deck there already, or, okay, and you just want to make the deck larger and then close in part of it, is that it? Or-
yeah, but it's like it's next to each other, and put some connection between two decks.
Oh,
And the new decks like it's like sunroom, like wall with the glass.
mm-hmm.
That's it.
Will the sunroom be going on the existing deck or on the new deck?
New
or
deck.
On the new deck?
And it's like connected to
Okay.
the old deck.
So it's an addition on, you're gonna replace the deck.
No, build a new deck.
You're gonna build a new deck, same
Because-
size as the,
Yeah,
Or a little
almost
bigger.
pretty much the same, because it's the old decks is you see in the map is like that. The new deck is
and
next
then-
to each other.
and then on top of the new deck, you wanna build a sunroof.
Yes.
So this is an addition
Mm-hmm.
to the home. It's gonna have a roof on it, right?
Okay.
So the foundation will be on piers.
Well, how close are the wetlands to this? I'm trying to figure out which house it is.
So on the map that you have in
Yeah.
the middle, there's that's a town GIS
Yeah.
map,
Mm-hmm.
with a orthographic photograph on top of it, with the state wetlands mapping on top of that, shown in the turquoise or blue.
The Sunset Circle, that, I don't recognize that street name. This is Orchard off of,
Orchard.
up near October Hill Road and
No, it's
off of Newton.
Yeah, there's another one here, there's Orchard, a couple of
Oh,
them.
okay, thank you.
Yeah,
That's reasonably accurate.
yeah. The Sunset Circle is a very small, short street at the end of Orchard Road.
Okay. Proposed deck shown here. Let's see when we did this.
And this area is heavily wooded.
In 2012, it was moving a deck and installing handicap ramp. was delegated to Terry and approved. So, just so we're clear, the deck that you're proposing is the same as what was originally approved or bigger than what was originally approved? You wanna come here, maybe you could take a look at this and. Okay, here's what existed, and then this is so basically squaring off the deck, is that what you, with the other deck that's already there?
The existing deck is already this one.
Yeah, where it says
Okay.
proposed deck, right? Okay.
This is the one that I want.
And is that 16 by 16, like you said in the application?
This is
14.4
another two.
by 27.5, basically, so.
Sometimes ask for
I wonder if 16 by 16 is the,
This one
The
is
sunroom.
this one, but it's gonna be this much. And we would like a bridge connect to this.
and the
It's
sunroom's
within that
going on this one?
footprint.
Sunroom's going on this one?
Yeah.
This is already existing.
In other words, they won't be directly connected everywhere.
Okay, well, yeah, because they have 7 feet here and 14 feet there, so there's 21 feet to work with here.
Mm.
Yeah.
And 27 on there, so you could probably put a 16 by 16 sunroom on there, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so you'll be able to walk around the outside, that's the
Okay.
plan.
So it's 30 feet.
Yeah, 'cause how far is it from the wetlands?
30 or 31 feet.
31?
Yeah, mhm.
I presume this is the same over here.
Yeah, yeah. Mhm.
And this is what, grass all now?
It's already existing
Or
lawn,
wooded?
Yeah, it says edge of lawn here, I don't know.
It's kind of a question of where does the water from the new roof go? Or should it go?
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, last time delegated it to Terry, and there's so much detail needed here still as far as, size and where the runoff from the roof goes and that kind of thing, so.
So this came in as a building permit application,
Mhm.
and was flagged by our office as needing a wetlands permit. I do think that the answer to the question of where does the water run off, it has to get, it's going to the wetlands, by the way, because it all goes to the wetlands. It's just how it gets there. Now, in terms of ground disturbance, we're talking about post holes, so I don't think it's a big disturbance. I think the roof water issue is something that has to be managed. And the idea is to slow that water down, so when it arrives at the wetlands, there's not an erosive or solid carrying material. Should be pretty clean water from the roof. There's a fair amount of it getting there in a diffuse manner from the present deck.
Right.
It's gonna run faster because of the roof, and so we have to find a way to slow it down. Techniques that we use first are to spread things out on a level spreader as much as we can, and but sometimes we use techniques like a dropped manhole or something like that, just to slow things down. It depends on how much space we have. I believe that there's lawn between the deck and the tree line, right? Yeah. So we have what we like to describe as a previously disturbed area.
Yeah.
So there's some space to manage it. I'm not concerned about the construction effort, because I think that it's easy to control given enough space there. But certainly requires a wetlands permit.
Yeah, we delegated it back in 2012, comfortable with delegation again now.
Convenient, sure.
I don't know, I think that makes sense,
I
it
think
doesn't
so,
sound like it's any, other than more runoff from the roof, doesn't sound like it's much different than what we looked at, 7 years ago, so.
Delegate the decisions.
Okay, Josh moved that we delegate to Terry, do we have a second?
Second.
Jack seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstentions, okay. All right, so what that means is that instead of waiting till next month for us to make a decision, Terry will issue a permit between now and next month. He'll work with your contractor to just, provide for silt fences and just go through details with the contractor then, okay?
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome, thank you. So, the Full Employment Act for Terry Gilbertson tonight, so. Oh, well, not this one, though. Okay, next time on the agenda, 106 Seymour Road, preliminary site plan review to determine if Wetlands Agency would consider parcel developable or not. Mr. Garcia.
Well, you did the walk. It's now in your court.
Yeah, sorry I missed it, but anyway. What's everybody think?
What do you have?
For me, the walk shows that the map shows what's happening on the property. There's water, there are two locations that drains actively this season into this lower pond. And there is a second pond here that does have water in it.
So do we think it should be developed?
Well, there's no guarantee, as I said to everybody, all I'm asking for, basically, is whether or not I have a shot, because I still have to go in there and dig test pits.
Yeah.
And there's still a question, and somebody raised it tonight, about the fact that there's, with a couple of exceptions, it's all brash. But again, the property had been a horse farm, 30 years ago or 40 years ago, so a lot of this stuff is kind of young, with the exception of a couple of trees, and one of those is dead, actually. But I still have to go in there and dig test pits. There's no guarantee that QVHD will sign off on this.
Mm-hmm.
I have to find sufficient, and the only area I can test it where it makes sense is where I show the septic system now. I don't think it's practical to swap the septic system in the house, even though I think if push came to shove, I may even try that. But it's not what I'm proposing. I'm proposing what you see on that sheet.
Mm-hmm.
And if QVHD signs off, then I would probably recommend to my client that I think we have a reasonably good shot of doing a modest proposal. But as Terry would be fond of saying, I may design something that's 30 by 60, and the guy who buys it wants to come in with 120 by 50.
Mm-hmm. Well,
A lot of people in Woodbridge don't like to take baths by themselves. I don't know what to tell you. It's just 5 bathrooms. And
well, when your client markets it, they should make it clear that this is how big it's gonna be,
I'm going to tell you, Bob, you know that as well as I do. I've done this we've looked at those houses a long time together, you and I, and
Yep.
I told my client you can only put a 30 by 60 on here, and the guy insists he wants to put a tennis court too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, well,
What's the status of this? Is this a lot in an approved subdivision? No?
It's an existing building lot. It's been taxed as a building lot.
Well, you can, we tax anything that doesn't move.
tax anything that isn't appealed otherwise.
That's right. I don't think that gives us any particular status.
Other
The-
than a deduction.
Let me see if I got the hold the phone. Let me see what I got.
You've just, and John, you've also seen a rash of septic repairs using septic devices that take less space. You don't ever consider using that on new houses?
The Mantis systems, and as Jim will tell you, there's a ton of septic product on the market. A lot of the product that I personally use is stuff that's been around for 30 or 40 years, and these egg crate Mantis systems, and some of these systems, if anybody remembers the fiasco with Elgin in drains, I mean, they put them in the ground, and in 3 years they were corking. They were coming right out of the ground. So they use them where there's no other. And I was just joking with Jay about a one in Orange where we've got 40, 30 foot long mantis trenches in the front yard because we got nothing else to do. The backyard's a swamp. And, you know, you use them because you've got no other alternatives. But you're putting a tremendous amount of septic system in a very small area. And for 1 or 2 people, that's great. But you put a family of 4 or 6 in there where the woman does 2 or 3 loads of wash a day, throw on a dishwasher, throw a garbage disposal on top of it. And I have real serious doubts about some of these proprietary systems working the way they're supposed to be. So my own personal is that the more room I got, the better I like it. So no, I would not entertain, if I can get 3 75-foot trenches or 4 75-foot trenches in there, I would probably go with a stone because it's an 80 or 100-year-old technology. It may be primitive, but my favorite expression is when we were going to the moon, we spent $15 million to develop a pen that wrote in space. And what did the Russians do? Number 2 pencil. So sometimes the newer technology isn't the best solution to a problem. I really,
Is there a designated area for a reserve as well?
it would have to be, yeah, we would show that, but that's what I'm
It's
saying.
not showing
It's,
here.
it's, we would have to test the entire area and then show a primary and reserve.
Okay.
And QVHD would have to sign off on that.
Is the proposal to build a house here or to just
Right now, they're trying to sell the lot. No one wants to buy a lot for building a house without the approvals in place. So the intent is to get the approvals. The intent is not for the Taffels to sell it. I think there's 3 siblings, and the intent is not for the Taffels to live. They used to, I guess they were. That was her mother's house, or I'm not sure where the mother lived. In what?
In the old house,
In the house across.
the house across the driveway.
Yeah, house across the driveway was the Taffels.
Is there presently a structure on this property?
There was a barn that came down.
Not much sound of it today, I didn't see.
He said just a stone
He
foundation.
found something up there,
Oh,
I
well,
didn't
yeah,
see it.
yeah.
Is that this in here?
I saw something here, but I don't know.
If the house and the septic are, where they are located, there'd have to be quite a lot of piping uphill.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have to pump it.
Okay, and the piping would have to go around that 100-foot circle?
Yeah,
Or would it go through?
but the pipe is an 1.5 pipe,
So
so you can put it pretty near anywhere.
you could,
Yeah,
you'd
you're
have to
running up
jog
here
it up
anywhere.
here.
That's the
Okay.
least of
How
our
do you get
worries.
to the house?
so
Or
you're
does
gonna
it
go
go
around that?
Okay.
Yeah, and the trenches that I'm showing, just to give you a clarification, are 120 feet long, which
Oh.
is more than sufficient. I've got land records going back to an obligation prior to 1960.
Oh, no, this road's on 15 days.
So I'll do some research for it if that's what you want. The lot existed prior to 1960.
So the driveway, access to the house. Will the wetlands application also include the proximity of the driveway to wetlands resources? Because the driveway is apparently a common driveway?
Driveway would come in here, yes. They have rights on this driveway. And it would come on this side.
And it comes from Seymour?
Yeah, it comes in from Seymour Drive up. There's a house here, and then this driveway would come in on the uphill side.
So, but we have to have
Guys.
legal,
Hey, Josh, you should shut off your mic if you're gonna talk because it overrides the.
I'll provide that. I'll provide copies of the deed that contain the covenants, and I'll dig out the covenants.
A question about if we did a permit. The permit would specify the size of the building
well,
limits, or could?
on Seymour Road, we've had a lot of experiences in the interplay between the zoning setback and wetlands, and I can remember one house in particular that became a 2-family house on Seymour Road because it kept on getting denied a front yard or a variance for frontage, and it kept on getting, and they were using that denial to get a wetlands permit, and the variable became the number of bedrooms. So I think it's possible to limit your approval as to the size of the house based on the available area, but in a context of a permit application.
Yeah, here's a house box that was approved. You know, you can build inside the box.
Anything else
Yeah,
needs to
you're
require
swimming in the fish.
further approval.
Yeah, you have to
Is
come back
what-
and modify
is
your
what we
permit.
like to say, that.
Yeah, you have to come back and modify your permit. We've done that a number of times. There's-
So I think that's a valid point, and, you know, this may not be modest enough, depending on what you find is I like small houses, I think they're
How big is this box?
big.
I usually do 40 by 80 because
Yeah, I think
by the
that's what
time
you
you throw
said was
decks
40
on,
by,
so that's 30, 60, yeah, that's 80 by 40. And the reason I do that is because, like I said, by the time you throw decks on, if you make the house 70 or 60, and then you put your tank next to it, your gas tank or your generator pad, you take up an 80-foot. And I think that you throw a deck on the back, you know, but again, the deck would be, here,
it's
which Jerry had mentioned.
which is a further incursion into the,
Yeah, so that may not be viable.
Hey, Terry, now this private driveway, is that treated as a front yard setback requirement, or because they'll have 3 front yards basically on this
No.
property? No? Okay, because it looks like everything's 75 feet, is that,
Right.
so would it be possible to push the house further toward either the front, you know, where the private drive is, or further up toward where it circles around?
Well, we have one front yard
On Seymour
on
Road?
Seymour.
Okay.
That's Seymour Road, it's technically the front yard, but I'm
If
treating
it,
the road as.
if it's an existing
Yeah.
lot, I mean, we have to pass that test, right?
Well, I will provide you with the paperwork.
And generally, that sometimes requires a title search, by the way.
Pardon?
That sometimes requires a title search to be able to prove that, in our experience.
Let's see what we have.
Depending
What's
on what you
zoning,
have in
56? Zoning is 56?
Zoning started in 32.
32, that's right. We'll figure it out.
I mean, the other thing to look at in here is if it is part of something that was approved at some point, depending on the age of it, they would show where the front lines were accepted by planning and zoning whenever it was approved. So we need to go back and we need to look at
Let's
that.
see what the original approval
Yeah,
says.
so
We can do that. No problem.
Well, I mean, that would give us more room to get it away from that stream in the middle
Right.
of the property, or a spring, whatever it
I mean,
is.
typically, a driveway is not considered a front yard, even if it is a common driveway. You know,
Okay.
unless it meets,
We-
if it's a private road, then yes, even if it's a private road, then we treat it as a front yard.
We
this
do
is a
do-
driveway or a private road?
We have to go look.
You have to,
Yeah, we
yeah,
don't
okay. And if it's a driveway, the setback would be what, 25 or 50?
25 feet.
25 feet, something.
If it's a front lot, and this is a front lot, cause it's got frontage on Seymour.
But we need to show an access, because we've had mixed success with private shared driveways.
Well, that's why we have those dog legs a lot of time to get out to a public road.
We have wonderful experiences. I know families that have grown up together, and all their kids go to the same college, and it's like a wonderful experience with a shared driveway. And we have the other experience as well.
They can be difficult.
So,
But here, there's no way to really get out to Seymour Road feasibly
No.
deeded
There's access, there's rights on that common driveway. And that's the access to this parcel. That was always the intent, was the access to the parcel.
Well, I'd feel much better if the house were pushed over closer to the common driveway to get it away from the spring in the middle of the property. But
Okay, I can pull it out.
if it shows
I can
to be
pull it out.
possible.
And I'll get Terry the paperwork on the deed in the lot, and then we can go from there.
What about everybody else though? I mean,
This was a big wet area right in here. Like another seep, right? There's two
Right.
areas where water was coming
The
in.
only one I saw was the spring. You saying there's another one?
Where we were walking and you said, don't walk there, it's too soft.
I thought that's the edge of the spring.
That's where the spring was rolling down the hill.
Okay, so you think it's continuous from here, there's that clear pathway that
There's
was
the
this
two
way,
ponds,
but you
yeah.
think there's this
Did
continuous?
something got missed?
I don't think.
Well, there was definitely that wet area that we,
Where, I know exactly what you're talking about, Gene. Where would
where
you
you were
say?
digging.
Where, yeah, so that is almost on the south, or it'd be the northwest corner of the proposed house is kind of where I thought we were, correct?
Or maybe closer over to this number 4
Somewhere right in this area?
transfer sign, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's, I thought it was a little bit further up.
A little, yeah, maybe.
That,
It's hard to
that
keep it
was,
in
the flagging, I was having a hard time making sense of exactly where those flags were being hung. Some of it was very obvious. Some of it, I was really trying to do some mental gymnastics to figure out exactly how his line went the way it went. The area that Gene and I are talking about was, the ground cover was jewelweed, skunk cabbage, sensitive fern, which are definitely on the wetter side. So
You think there's a wet spot there that we didn't pick up?
it's hard to say because I didn't have this map before I went out there. I didn't have a tape measure with me, so to get a good sense of exactly where I was in the site, going off of just what I saw flagging and trying to orientate myself off of these flags. Now this stream comes down here, and from this stream over to the driveway, there's definitely was a wet area with a lot of piled trees
There's a lot of disturbed area in there, yeah.
and
But
that's where I was curious I didn't see any flagging in there, and that's
well, like I said, I trust Bill Kenny, or they're usually pretty good. And he did this, I think, in September, so it wouldn't have been bone dry. You know, it wouldn't have been like doing it in August or. But again, if you think we missed a spot, I'll have him go back out there and check it.
Probably wouldn't make sense. Then if
Has there been any vernal assessments at all?
Well, no, these are man-made. There's no question about it. These are man-made ponds. They're stone walled. There's no infiltration into the upper pond. The little pond is right next to a well. We had talked about that. I had actually talked about that with Jim Preddy. The fact that appeared to have been fed by the overflow from the well, and then the big is functioning as a vernal pool, but it's obviously man-made. I mean, it's rock lined. It's beautiful. The walls are in excellent shape, with one or two exceptions. The walls are in excellent shape, and it's being fed. The majority of the water that feeds that comes down from that spring. I know we were standing on that, and that was running pretty good.
Yeah.
That was running probably in the vicinity of a quarter to a half a gallon a minute, if not more. And that spring is quite evident and defined. And that's what feeds the bigger pond, and that pond is, if you want to classify it as a vernal pool, I think it would probably act as one, but it's obviously man-made. These are both stock ponds.
Okay, so, vernal pools are, wetlands, vernal pools, there's kind of two different things, right? With different,
This is not an actual vernal pool.
okay, so your testimony that it's acting as a vernal pool is
No,
probably not
that's not my
correct.
testimony. I said if you want to, I'm telling you it's man-made. These were stock ponds. There's no question about it.
So given that, any place else on the property that, has been evaluated for for vernal activity?
These are the only wetlands that were flagged by my soil scientist.
So no vernal
There's no vernal
activities
pools, no.
has
And to
been,
be honest with you, it slopes up fairly steeply. It's got a good pitch to it.
we found them on the top of hills.
I know that, but in this particular case,
Okay,
I don't think there's a fairly substantial drainage ditch on the south side of the road. I don't think there's anything.
Okay.
He walked the property. This is what, and I have to go by what he says. I mean, these guys. Bill Kenny's not a fly-by-night wetlands scientist.
just a question.
Okay, well, what should we tell Mr. Garcia as far as
Any comment from
Jim?
I do agree where you were digging. I think it was probably halfway between that spring, because we kind of walked by you path you took us out of that area over to that pond. There was odd, on the way by there, there was 2 sprouts of skunk cabbage kind of in the middle of nowhere, path that we walked out of there. It may be worth another look. Where none of the spots I walked seemed squishy or overly wet, but there, like I said, there was a couple of spots. There was a spot where there was just skunk cabbage in the middle of nowhere. These are clearly man-made at some point. Whatever was feeding the smaller pond may have been disturbed or changed somehow, because it looks like the smaller pond overflowed and the larger pond doesn't do that anymore because this pond is so low. Water level was so low in the smaller pond, it doesn't. I think it's all fed out of that spring. I guess I would agree with the assessment about, I'm a little bit confused about the right. You know, he says that there's rights to this driveway. I don't know what the rules are. I don't have the zoning in front of me about common driveways, the bridge. There are some places where if you have vehicular access, like the private road, that you do have to hold the front line setback, which he showed here. But if that's not the case, I would agree, moving it farther up into the corner is the right way to go. Further away from the spring.
Well, I think step number 1 is get the, Terry and Chris have both asked, or for verification on A, the rights, and B, the lot. So let's get that done first.
Another, and I don't know if it can even be answered at this point in time. If you go in there to clear an area for the house, you are gonna be taking some trees out, which of course are absorbing some water today. And there's gonna be more flow without the trees, I think. And probably more activity into these ponds.
Well, that'll have to be covered as part of the application.
So, in fact, the disturbed area, I mean, you know, you have a, the drainage coefficient presently of the land is one thing, but, you know, put a house, a roof, a driveway, and.
You're going from 0.3 to 0.75 or 0.8.
And then some lawn, which has the same thing as an asphalt roof, right?
No, I don't buy that. Some people,
Not quite, but
not
it's
quite,
more.
but it's
Certainly more than a wooded
from
area.
0.3 to 0.5.
Compared to the wooded floors floor.
Yeah, 0.3 would be 0.25 or 0.3 would be a duff wood floor. 0.5 would be a lawn. 0.7 to 0.8 would be driveways and roofs, and 0.9 would be all the impervious.
So you have to account for all of that water and manage that water
Yeah,
responsibly, and
that has to be part of the application.
I didn't walk around the perimeter of the bigger pond. Is there an outlet control somewhere?
Yeah, there is an outlet that goes into the catch basin on Seymour Road, and there's a monster swamp across the street that it feeds into.
it's a huge one.
Yeah, it's a big swamp.
Is it
Yeah.
called Monster Swamp?
Well, with the bears running around, I think it is now, but it's that better than saying a big swamp. It's a big swamp. That's a big piece of swamp. Yeah, and there's no overflow. I've been there in some severe rainstorms. There's no overflow from that property onto the street like there is up higher.
But there is some sort of control. That
Yeah,
to manage
there's
it.
something in there, and we'll have to dig it out because it wasn't overflowing. And my initial thought was to use that as a detention structure, because there's a lot of freeboard in both those ponds.
Seems like there's more investigation to be done before any
Yeah,
decisions.
we'll confirm the lot, and then we'll give it to Terry, and we'll go from there.
Chris, is this an actual application, or are we still
No.
just?
No,
Okay, I
this
just
is
wanted to
all
be sure we didn't have any
preliminary
deadlines.
discussion.
I didn't want to start
Yeah.
digging until,
Right, no, I agree.
you've got questions, let's get the questions answered.
Right, yep,
Okay, thank you.
okay, thanks, yep.
I will get the information.
Thank you.
So we'll continue this enlightening discussion until next month?
Until next time.
John, you're gonna be back next month and we'll continue this, is that the plan?
Yes, I guess that's the intent, is by hopefully, in the next 2 weeks, I'll get Terry the information on whether or not this is the lot, when it
Okay.
existed, what are the rights of the roads, and hopefully either they have a a title search, or we'll have one of my guys come in and do a title search
Okay,
and research it back.
okay. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda, 144 Ford Road, application of residential site development of property. Anybody here on this? Any-
They discussed it,
We
they
did
just
it.
held it. No, you didn't act on it.
Oh, I wasn't here
It
last
came in
month.
last
Yeah,
month,
it wasn't-
and you held it over to this month to act on it.
Oh, okay, all right. So nobody's here to talk about it?
No, because it was discussed at last month's
Okay,
meeting.
all right.
There was a prior permit for this. It expired. His testimony was that the area that he's utilizing is what was approved under the old permit.
Oh, okay, yeah, I remember reading through the minutes on this now.
Is the house that was knocked down?
No, this is an undisturbed parcel.
If you read the minutes, there's a discussion of what we talked about.
Yeah.
From the ones we're supposed to approve.
Okay, do we need to talk about it more, or are we just voting? What's the thought here?
Any comments, further comments on?
Oh, there's some, I believe it's road drainage off of
Yeah.
the side of the lot that goes to the lower area, which was a former four-lot subdivision approved by this agency, which has now been purchased by a trust and will not be developed.
And this is the remaining lot, is that it?
Right.
Yeah. Mhm.
Right. And this is on Ford Road as opposed to at
Osborne.
Osborne.
Mhm.
And, you know, there's a fairly extensive, if you recall, the rear deck outside portion is almost as big as the house itself. You know, again, the task is going to be managing the increased flow of water, but we seem to be taking it to the place where it's always kind of been because of the road drainage from Ford Road.
So basically, all the areas outside the review area, from what I could see, is there a change from that, or?
Not that I know. Well,
Okay.
no, I think we're separated a fair distance.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
If you're just constrained, to wait a month.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, the tension in all of these sorts of things is managing the disturbed area. Because by the time that, they figure out that the tree clearing out guy will charge you the same amount of money to clear the entire lot as opposed to clearing to your clearing limits, it won't be any difference in price. So they tend to try to overclear, and that's the tension, and that's why we found that the pre-construction clearing meeting is a useful sort of technique to remind everybody of the obligation.
To be installed. Because what his testimony was that the limits of clearing were gonna be where the erosion controls were.
I see the erosion control. There's a note here someplace.
It's also not uncommon for us to require as a condition of approvals some modest signage reminding people of the limitation of the use of the area.
Yeah, I don't see anything, unless I'm missing it, I don't see anything about fence. Maybe there's oh, split rail fence, I'm sorry, there it is. Yeah, okay, it's there, along the,
I think we should put that all into the
right. Mhm.
condition of the permit and the pre-construction meeting and the erosion standard stuff.
Yeah, so, do we have a motion to approve the application? Its usual stipulations, the split rail fence is shown on the map, and, what else?
want the placards?
Oh, yeah, you know, signage is approved by the Wetlands Enforcement Officer, you know, placement to be approved by the Wetlands Enforcement Officer. And Terry, you could just let them know how many they need to do and where they wanna put them. With the fence there, it could just be placed on the fence actually, so.
Mm-hmm.
Relative to the limits of clearance, so we don't have the problem of the whole business being cleared out, is some signage, can that be marked or?
Well, what we do,
Is it temporary
what
things
we've
or
done in the past
police
is that
tape or
we made
something?
another condition that the surveyor mark on the ground the limits of clearing
Yeah.
before.
That would make sense, and the fence goes along the wetlands review area line, whereas the limits of clearance are in front of that in some spots, so.
So you know, another condition, you know, used to be common was it, you know, that the survey record, place stakes and indicate on the ground the limits of clearing, so we don't have any religious experiences.
Yeah. I mean, on these kind of things, do we typically do a bond, or do we not bother with this? Or do we do a bond for the amount of the fence and the?
It's helpful to have that carrot there to make sure that the split rail fence and the placards get put up. So it doesn't have to be a big bond, but
Talking about a couple, $2,500, something like that, or?
something like that.
I like a bigger bond than a smaller bond myself.
Okay,
I think $5,000 is a
More than the cost of the fence.
Pardon me?
Yeah.
It should be more than the cost of the
Yeah.
fence.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, everybody comfortable with 5,000? All right, do we have a motion to approve with those stipulations?
I'll make the motion.
Jack moved, you have a second?
Sure.
Josh seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, abstentions? Okay, approved with those, provisions.
Thank you.
In your packet was a letter from Tim Austin, who's with the Woodbridge Park Association. There's property on Penny Lane where there's an existing 10-foot wide trail easement, and apparently the owner is has approached the Park Association about having that easement relocated. Currently, it goes at the back of the house, and the house sits pretty close back to where that trail easement is. So what they're proposing is to have it moved to the front of the house, where it was in uplands at the back of the house. At the front of the house, there's wetlands. So I said, you know, it probably would be a good idea to have some feedback from you guys. So he didn't know if you might be able to go out there and walk it with him, some of you, just to get an idea if you think it's a wetland that's capable of being walked in. I mean, you know, trails are something that can be as of right, but sometimes you have trails that have, you know, small boardwalks across them and whatnot, so they wanted some kind of feel for whether or not you thought it was a good idea or not. At the beginning, as it comes off Penny Lane, there's also a town easement, drainage easement, but apparently town council has indicated that it would be okay for a trail system to go across that easement. Otherwise, the concern was that it was gonna have to bump outside that 30-foot easement and push it closer towards the house, but apparently the town would be amenable to letting it sit across that easement. And it is only a 10-foot wide trail, so that's what that is. That's why he's not here, because it's just a request to go out and take a look-see at it.
Formally with all hands.
It's
Or-
up to you, you know, if you wanna send out a representative or 2 representatives and you're not a quorum, they can report back, can do a discussion from there, whatever.
I don't know, is anybody interested in doing that? We can just have a couple people go on, not have to have everyone go out, so. Okay.
He's gone for a little bit, I don't remember if he put it in one of the.
Suggested the 27th, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, you said anytime
Is
after
it
the 27th.
apparent or obvious where one should look? I mean, if we
it comes off of Penny Lane?
Yeah, it's the last house
Right.
on the left on Penny Lane. And right now, the trail easement goes north. There's an easement between those two lots at the end of the cul-de-sac if the road was ever extended, which it's not gonna be because there's a house behind it. But anyway, there's a 10-foot easement along that. So it goes straight back and then it goes along that back side, the longer side of the property. And then it goes over to another parcel that's actually owned by the Park Association. So there is, you know, an intent to actually have it used as a trail.
Goes into Alice Newton Park,
Yep.
and it goes along the tennis court, I'm guessing? Is that his tennis court or is that somebody else's tennis court?
I don't recall looking at the map and seeing a tennis
Backs
court.
up to Indian Trail.
I have, you know, I have a copy of the site plan 470 that shows very clearly where the existing easement is. You know, if anybody goes out, I can make a copy of that for you and you'll know where you're going.
I'm in that area all the time, I wouldn't mind walking through there.
I can do it if I'm here. I have some up in the air
Oh, okay.
things going on in my family.
Well, tell you what, why don't we, what's the 27th?
It's Memorial Day,
Memorial
actually.
Day.
It's a
So
Monday.
it's after that period of time that he said was okay, so.
Oh, he said, after
After
May
May
27th.
27th, yeah, he's away until then, it sounds like, so.
I didn't really read the whole sentence, I guess.
Yeah, well, you know what, you don't have to, Josh, if you wanna go out there and take a look, and then I'll go out there and take a look at some point too, and then we'll just report back next meeting, you know.
Okay. Do
That's
you
okay.
want him to meet with you to go out there with you or?
That would probably be helpful, I guess, we should
Okay.
contact him,
I
so.
would definitely prefer to meet him.
Yeah.
So he
Okay.
can show me exactly.
So I
Yeah.
mean, you could do it after work some
Yeah,
night.
you know, anytime, yeah, you know, 29th or 30th would probably be the best for me, so I don't know if that's, works for you, Josh, you know.
Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah.
Maybe do an email once you have it.
Okay,
Get
and then
there,
whoever else
and
wants,
a- and
yeah,
a
why don't we do
targeted
that?
time.
Do you think that'd be okay?
So I'll
with you?
check with his availability.
Yeah, on the 29th or 30th, and just let us know which one, and then you can send it to everybody, whoever wants to show up can show up.
30th would work better at baseball on Wednesdays.
Okay, all right, then 30th,
Hey,
see
you
if the,
gotta take care of your kids.
yeah, exactly,
When your coach-
30th, ask them about their 30th, otherwise we'll bump it to the next week.
Okay,
Okay.
very good.
All right, enforcement officer report, anything going on, Terry, we have to worry about? Good, okay, no further discussion necessary. Skip that. Site visits, we don't have any new site visits. Approval of minutes of April
I
17th.
found one thing, I think.
Oh, yeah, I found one too.
Yeah,
You
me
did,
too.
whether we're all
He was
conversating.
here, he was
Yeah,
calling the meeting to
Chairman's
order
wife.
from.
I was here in,
Report.
I was here in spirit, you know,
Yeah.
but, yeah, other than that correction, anything else,
And
anybody?
the heading is the wrong date.
Yeah, tennis not
Oh, I've got the wrong, you know, I hate this, I bring up, I cut and paste, and then I
Yep,
think I
I
catch
found that.
everything, and then I don't.
It happens to all of us. When I
You
sent
know,
you the
and that's
email,
why you have to read them.
well, when I sent you the email saying I really wasn't there to call the meeting to order, I had typos in that email, so, you know, it's, you know. Anyway,
It's okay.
anything else of the date and the calling to order?
I think the name of the owner of 144 Ford Road is Tereb, T-E-R-E-B.
I'll
Just check.
double check.
Yeah, check it with, because I know the guys, and that's not how he spells it.
Okay.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the minutes with those changes? Jack moved. I'll
Second.
Barry seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? I guess I should abstain. I
Yeah, I
wasn't
guess
here,
I
so.
should too, yeah.
Dave and I abstained. All right, I think that's it. Anything else? Yes.
I just wanted to let you know that our finance department has approved the posting of a position of a recording secretary.
Oh,
And it is publicly now posted. And so we have hopes of taking some of the pressure that Christine has been under in having to do all three of the agencies. hope that the new person will start soon. That person hasn't been picked yet. And if you know anybody that is interested in part-time work, it's on every bulletin board that we could find. I think we're in a small little newspaper, and we're hopeful that Christine's role will return to being one to review the submitted minutes before you guys get them for format. So
No, we thank you for filling in, and we've tried to help by not having as many meetings as we.
No, I know,
have.
you've been really good, cause Wednesdays are tough, cause I do Girl Scouts or Cub Scouts on Wednesdays, so like tonight, I had my daughter covering while I left, and they were making poppies for their float for Memorial Day, so I was like,
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it, dividing ourselves up so many places.
Yeah.
Anyway, anybody, thank you anyway. Anybody else have anything else we need to talk about? Okay, then, we have a motion to adjourn, anyone?
Let's have a motion to adjourn.
Dave moved, Jack seconded, all in favor? Aye. All right, we're out of here, 7:37 or so, I mean,
Or
8:37, sorry.